Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin, and this is West Virginia Wesleyan College. This is Graphic Design 1, and today I will introduce you to InDesign, and we'll create a poster for our lecture. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is open up InDesign, and we're going to say Create New. Right, and today the dimensions that we're going to work in we want to create an 11 by 17 poster. So I typically want to work in picas, but to do a quick math in my head, I'll just switch that to inches, and I'll put 11 by 17, and I want to uncheck facing pages. I only want one page, it's a poster. And I'm going to go ahead and put those back to picas. Alright, and then we're just going to say create. And there's our 11 by 17 poster. Without worrying too much about the interface, the one thing we want to make sure that you have open when you start those, the properties. This is going to be your number one palette. So all of the tools and options that you have here will change as you change tools. And this will be very helpful. Right, so now we have this poster, but we need some copy and some images. So I'm going to show you the copy that I'm going to use for this poster. You will have a copy of your own for your own poster. Alright, this is for a West Virginia Wesleyan College lecture series. So I'm just going to simply copy that text, say my selection tool, and here's my type tool. Right, so I'm going to go to my type tool, and if you just click once with your type tool, nothing will happen. What I need to do is click and drag out a text box. So I'm going to do that over here in the margin, and I'm just going to Command V and paste all that text into here. Great. Alright, beyond that, I need some images. So let's take a look a little bit at this text and see what this is about. Alright, so this is the heartbreak game. What makes classic country songs classic? Alright, and so it's about country music. So I am going to go and get some country music pictures, and I'm going to need a picture of Professor Eric Wagner as well. Alright, so to do that, I'm going to go to Pexels. Unless you have a subscription to another photography or stock photography program, but we're going to go to Pexels because it's free, and these are all fair use. All right, so I'm just going to type in country music. All right, I don't get a lot of options in Pexels. It is free and it is fair use, so I don't get too many options, but I think this is going to do me very nicely, so I'm going to go ahead and download that. And I'm also going to need a picture of Eric Wagner. Alright, so I'm going to go to Google Images. I searched him. I'm going to go to Images. I know this to be Eric. And so I'm going to select this image here. And if I click on it here, and then I can go ahead and right-click, and I'm going to say Open in New Tab. And that's a pretty good picture of Eric there. Alright, so I'm going to say Save Image As. I'm going to save that to my computer. So now I'm going to go back to InDesign. I'm going to bring in those two images. Now you can File Open, or I should say, pardon me, File Place, Command D, or you can just drag them in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say File Place. There we are. Select that picture of Eric, and then there it is, and I'm just going to click. Alright, so it's a little too big right now. So here is the biggest hurdle for a new InDesign user. So you'll take your selection tool here, the black arrow, and you can move that picture around. Okay, but I want to shrink the picture, so I have to do it like this. Uh-oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Any other photo program, you can click on the corners and you can shrink it down, but in InDesign, it's a crop. So what you need to do is go to the, right here, the Free Transform tool. Alright, you can get there by selecting the letter E on your keyboard or just clicking here. Alright, so now that I have the Free Transform tool, I can grab the corner and change it. But uh-oh, this is what you don't want to do. You don't want to change the ratio of the image. So Command Z is to undo that. Alright, so we're going to go to the Free Transform tool, and we don't want to do this. So how do we avoid squashing the image? How we do that is by simply holding down the Shift key. Right, so I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I click and drag, and that maintains those proportions. And then I go back to my selection tool, V, and I can move that around, and that's a much more manageable size. Now if I want to crop it, with my selection tool I can just grab these anchor points and it's all ready to crop. Now why does InDesign do that? Because we need to crop a lot of photos. That's more important than sizing. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to drag an image in. I'm just going to go to my Finder here, and here I have my black and brown cutaway acoustic guitar. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that in. I'm going to click on that. Now it's a really large, high-resolution photo. Alright, so I need to make this smaller really quickly. So I'm going to come over to my Properties panel here. And here's what I want to do. I want to transform it. So yours will have your reference point typically in the middle. So if it's in the middle, that's the center of the photo, and I want to go ahead and make it 20% smaller, it'll say this value can cause one or more objects to leave the pasteboard. Alright, so that's a problem. That's because as it shrinks, it's going to shrink on the center. So I want to shrink it at this reference point, which is right here. So now that I select that, and I come over here and I say 20%, and I hit Tab, there we go. Now it's a much more manageable size. Now if I select my selection tool, I can click on it and move it around. But it's not the right size. So what do? What do we do with this photo? I can't simply grab the corners. Apple Z to undo, or Command Z, pardon me. I need to select this image, and then I need to go to my transform tool, and then before I try to transform it, I have to hold down the Shift key again, and drag. There we have. Now it's filling up the whole part of the poster. Great, which is just what I wanted to do. Right now I'm going to put a little background in. I don't want this to be white. So I am going to come down here to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag out a rectangle. Great. Now it's just a plain empty rectangle. So I'm going to come back over here to my Properties tab, and I'm going to click on Fill. I want to change the fill color to black. There we are. Great, but it's still not quite like I want it. I'd like it to just fill what's left over from the photograph. So now this is in front of this, so I need to send it to the back. There's two ways we can do that. One is to go to our Layers palette. Here's my Layers palette. If I open up this layer, you can see I have these different objects. I'm going to take this rectangle and just drag it down to the bottom. Voila. And there we have it. Now another really important key here is the W key. If I hit W, it will turn off and show me a preview of what my poster looks like so far, without all the guides and the lines. It's a toggle, so I can just hit W again. And that's just a great way to give me a test of how things are looking, without all these distracting lines. Right. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is create some hierarchy. I've got all of my information. I've got it all in the order that I want it. But I need to break it up a little bit. So I am going to take a look at this content, and I'm going to see what are the three main groups. And the first group is who and what. So here I've got Heartbreak. It's presented by Wesleyan College and Eric Wagner. So that's one group of information. Pardon me. Now that's who and what. Next is where and when. So that is all this information. And now here's my description. Down here, here's Eric's bio, and here's a description of what people will come to see at the performance. All right. Now it's very important in InDesign to keep your text boxes to a minimum, the number of them. It's very sophomoric, to say the least, to have dozens of boxes all over the place. This creates trouble for printers, but also creates trouble for you. You can't create accurate measurements and alignment, and essentially at the end of the day, good harmony in your typography if you've got text boxes all over the place. So right now, all of this text is aligned to the left, and I can control it fairly easily. But I do want to pull this group of information because it's going to be treated quite a lot differently than the rest of this. So I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to say Command X. You can highlight it and say Edit Cut. All right, and then I'm going to make a new text box by clicking and dragging and then pasting. All right, now I can't see that text because it's black on a black background. So what I want to do is come back to my Properties panel, and I'm going to highlight that text. Right now the fill is black. click on that and make it white. Great. Alright, so now I'm going to take this group of text, and I want it to be somewhere over here. Same problem, I'm going to highlight it all, and I'm going to click on the fill here in the Properties panel, change that text to white. Great. Now, it's behind this image here, so I need to bring it forward. Once again, I'm going to go to my Layers palette. I'm going to select that. It highlights here, tells me what I'm selecting. I'm going to bring that to the front. Great. Alright, so if I hit W, things are looking okay, but there's some grouping. I've got several groups of information, but we don't have any real hierarchy because everything's the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here. I'm going to make the bio and the description much smaller. I'm going to keep this about this size. Alright, and the most important thing is the title, so I'm going to make that quite large. Like about that big. Now here's something that's very important in InDesign. My text disappeared. That's because it outgrew the space, if you will, that was allotted here in this text box. But InDesign's telling me by this little red output, it's highlighted red, saying that there is extra text that we can't see. Now the best and easiest way to see that text is to hit Command Option C, and then it'll just expand that box to fit all the text so you can see it. Great. Alright, so as we talked about in the video lecture, talked about solid leading and title. So you can already see now the auto leading on this title is getting to be a little awkward. I'm going to go back to my Properties palette. If I highlight this text, you can see I'm using Minion Pro Regular, and it's 66 points. I'm going to make it a nice even 70 points. And it's at 84 leading. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that to 70, make it solid leading, because it's a title, and titles tend to look awkward as text gets larger, so we want to give that a solid leading. Alright, so now we've got some proximity issues. Eric Wagner is running into this title a bit. I want to space that out. Now, someone who isn't well trained in InDesign might go ahead and just make a new text box there. But we're not going to do that. We want to have good measurement control. So I'm going to simply put my cursor here in this text, and I'm going to create paragraph spacing. So I'm going to say that everything after this paragraph is going to have a space between it. So I can do that in my Properties panel. I can come down here to Character and scroll down a little farther to Paragraph. And then you see right here is space after. And that's what I want to do. I want to put space after this paragraph here. So I'm just going to go ahead and, you can use the arrow if you like. I'm just going to type in 3 picas. That looks pretty good to me. Alright, so I've got some pretty good grouped information here. West Virginia Wesleyan College presents. I feel like that's a little too close. I'm going to give that about 2 picas. That's too much, 1 pica. Great. Alright, and then Eric is more important than his title, at least I think so. So I am going to highlight this information, make it a little smaller. Again, you can do that over here. And I'm going to make it italics. I can do that here. There we are. Alright, some pretty good hierarchy. So we read from top to bottom and left to right. So the first thing we read is West Virginia Wesleyan College presents, but we may read this first because of its size, because this is the most important information. But this all by itself, we need to have a little more context. So where is this happening? And right away, West Virginia Wesleyan College is presenting this. The next thing, after we know what they're presenting, who is going to present this? And that's Eric, and he is pretty important. I might even make his name a little bit bigger. In some cases, the speaker is the most important, and their name might be the largest element in the design. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this information up a little bit. Oh, but wait, I forgot about Eric's picture. So I'm going to hit the W key and go ahead and bring him in here. Now quickly note this little photography lens image here changes your selection tool. As you move over the image, it pops up, but if you move there, then you can move around the picture within the frame. It's just something to note. You can do that there. And you can also do this by simply changing from the selection tool to the direct selection tool. And that'll do the same thing. Alright, so, but I want to just go ahead and move Eric's photo right here. And I want to make it a little smaller. How do we do that again? We go to the Free Transform tool. Grab the corner and hold the Shift key down. I think that's pretty good. All right, moving right along. Now we've got this text. Now it's not really fitting quite so well. All right, so we might need to make some changes there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see what type size this is. With my cursor there, it's 18 points. Now it looks really small from where we are, but people can typically read 12, well really 10 to 14 point type with relative ease. And so if they're interested in this poster, if it's attractive, it's caught their attention, they walk a little closer, they read the title, they're more intrigued, and they're like, okay, I want to read more about it. They'll get even closer at that point. And so we're safe to move this type size down to somewhere around between 12 and 14, I think is good. So I'm going to try with 14, and that feels pretty comfortable to me. All right, I don't want it riding over that guitar there, so I'm going to move it over just a little. Now this is all the same, so I need to create some hierarchy here. The most important information here is when. You know, can I fit this into my schedule? Am I going to be free on Monday, September 11th, 2016? I'm going to make that bigger. Now I'm going to create some proximity hierarchy by making some space. So here is when, the day and the time, and next is where. So I'm going to put my cursor there and come over to my paragraph portion of my properties palette, and I'm going to maybe add a pica. That looks pretty good. All right, and now down here, the rest of this is just the address and then the phone number. So I'm going to separate the phone number a little bit, adding one pica. Great. This looks still a little too large. I'm going to highlight that, make it a little smaller. Oh, sorry, I'm going to make all of this smaller. 22, I'm going to bring it down to 20. And I'm going to try to keep Virginia Law Center all on one line. So I'm going to move that out. And lastly, I am going to remove the hyphens. I don't need any hyphens. This is one small group of text, so there's no reason to have hyphens there. All right, so let's take a look at our poster. If I hit W, it's got fairly decent hierarchy. I mean, it could look a lot more beautiful. There's more things that we could do to this to make it attractive, but the image is an objective image. It tells us a lot about what's happening, and it connects to the title and the text. So does Eric's image, so we can see his name and the proximity. They're grouped together, so we know who the speaker is and what he looks like. Then we can quickly hierarchically find out when and where this event's happening, and then if I want more information, I can come down here and read it. So it's pretty functional. So this is a good functional poster. Now when I'm done with it, of course, I want to hit save. Probably should have hit save earlier. And given it a name, we'll say. And before I send it to the printer, I'm going to make a PDF. So I'm going to say File and Export. And I'm going to have a print PDF, because that's what I want to do. It's going to be a poster that we're going to print, not an interactive PDF. That would just exist online. So I'm going to select PDF print. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to hit Export. And here's my little export indicator. It tells me what's going on. If I click, Acrobat automatically opens it. And there's my poster, and it's ready to print. Great. So thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next time.